Warning: this clip contains spoilers for the movie. If you want to watch the full film, skip it. Viewers over 18 years old, children, pregnant women, or elderly individuals with heart conditions need supervision. Viewers who are alone should hug a pillow, and those with partners hold loved ones. We hope everyone enjoys listening. Thank you. The story begins with Buppah, a first-year medical student who is indifferent to anyone or anything. She prefers to be alone, doing things by herself, and appears mysterious. However, for Ek, she is an intriguing woman, so he secretly watches her and tries to talk to her, but she refuses to engage. On the last day when Ek is about to give up, Buppah, who is going to feed the birds, asks him about the luxury car parked nearby, which belongs to Brown. Ek confirms it, and then she agrees to talk to him. Ek feels a bit disappointed, thinking that Buppah might be like other women who are attracted to wealthy men with fancy cars. Buppah knows that Ek has been following her for a month and is aware of his personal history and all his information. That evening, she asks Ek to take her to the beach, and they end up being intimate. She tells him that she doesn't like men with luxury cars or wealth, but she likes Ek because he is different from her friend, who is wealthy and unfaithful. She expresses that she dislikes men who cheat to be with women. However, the reality of the situation is different from her thoughts, as the truth unfolds about everything Ek has done. It was just a bet with friends, that if Ek could be intimate with Buppah, he would win a bottle. Deep down, Ek didn't think he could do it, and felt guilty. After the night with Buppah, he cut off contact and avoided her until the semester break. Buppah refused to go home, so her father came to pick her up from the university. Her father, who is lewd, took her to a motel to be intimate with her, which he had been doing since she was a child. Buppah's patience reached its limit, and she used a pen her father had bought her to stab him before escaping back to her apartment, where she attempted to cut her wrists to commit suicide. On that very day, Ek called her to apologize, feeling guilty, and suggested they go back to being siblings. He mentioned he was going to study in England, and offered to help her with anything she needed. However, Buppah handed him a pregnancy test, and told him she was pregnant, asking how he would help her now. After that, Ek took Buppah to have an abortion, assuring her not to worry, because once he returned from abroad, his parents would arrange a wedding for her. She agreed to go through with the abortion. After it was done, Ek drove Buppah back to her apartment. Buppah told Ek that she loved him, but he was evasive, saying he would go out to buy porridge but then drove away, leaving for England, and abandoning Buppah. The scene shifts to JC, the owner of the Oscar apartment where Buppah rented. She has 3 tenants, and Jay hired a fake fortune teller to scam people for money. One day, when she went to collect rent from Buppah's room, she found that Buppah, who lived in room 609, had not paid rent for almost a month. Buppah told Jay that she would pay in the morning, but when morning came, she still did not come down. Jay then went up to collect the rent, and found Buppah's corpse lying in the bathroom due to blood loss. The police reported that Buppah had been dead for a month, which shocked Jay because she had spoken with Buppah just the night before. While the Protect Tongue Foundation came to collect the body, strange things began to happen, as Buppah's corpse moved and sat up on its own. Seeing this, the Protect Tongue group fled, and the apartment door locked itself, with sounds of Buppah's cries coming from inside. Everyone was told to leave, and the police involved in the case also fell victim to the haunting, making no one brave enough to retrieve Buppah's body from the room. From then on, the apartment began to talk about the haunting of Buppah's ghost. JC, worried about not having tenants, tried to call the police again, but no one dared to enter. One day, Dao, the owner of a convenience store and food stall near the apartment, suggested to JC to let a fortune teller come to check it out, as she needed to maintain the faith of the deity next to the apartment. JC knew full well that the fortune teller was a scam to trick people out of their money. Although the 18 con artists had some tricks up their sleeves, when it came down to it, the fortune teller also had to flee in fear. With no other options, JC hired a real shaman, paying 100,000 baht. But even the shaman could not subdue Buppah's ghost. Instead, it only provoked Buppah's anger further. Buppah's ghost then declared, "You want to drive me away, huh? Fine, now I will chase you away," and began to haunt the group of shamans, starting to scare the residents living in the apartment. In the end, when no one could subdue Buppah's ghost, the residents of the apartment gradually moved out, leaving JC without income. The faith in the deity, Hengjia, also waned as he could not exorcise the ghost. One night, someone knocked on Buppah's door, and when she opened it, she found her father, who was unaware that Buppah had died. He was frightened by her ghost and fled, but due to the resentment she held against him for his actions during her childhood, she haunted him. This led to her father crashing his car into a roadside barrier, resulting in his death. That night, Buppah's screams echoed throughout the apartment, and she continued to haunt the remaining residents, causing them to live in fear. Eventually, there were almost no tenants left in the apartment. One afternoon, a priest came in and told JC that he would exorcise the ghost, but needed to act quickly, as other exorcists had failed. JC began to lose hope, but at that moment, she noticed a picture hanging on the wall, and decided to call a contact to arrange for a Cambodian shaman to come and exorcise Buppah's ghost. The scene cuts back to Ek, who is calling from abroad in a poor state. He tells his mother that he wants to come home, because he has become addicted to drugs, and the family is already aware of everything. After returning, he stops to buy porridge for Buppah. Still unaware that she has passed away, Ek shares his entire story with Buppah's ghost, explaining that he was forced to study in England, but now he has returned, to be with her and take care of her. He promises not to leave her again. While Ek is resting with Buppah's ghost, he tries to call his father to reconcile, but it seems nothing improves. The next day, Ek wakes up and finds Buppah missing. He goes down to the hair salon and overhears the owner gossiping about the haunting of room 609. Ek thinks it's just a funny story, but it leads him to dream of Buppah's ghost, waking up startled to find her. He tells Buppah about what the salon owner said, and upon hearing this, Buppah goes down to scare the salon staff, threatening them to stop meddling in her affairs. Consequently, the salon owner and his employees have to move out as well. The following morning, Ek wakes up again without seeing Buppah. She usually appears and stays with him at night, but that night, when Ek wants to be intimate with her, she refuses and asks if he can stay with her without that. Ek agrees, but then excuses himself to go buy porridge downstairs. Ek is seduced by the daughter of the porridge shop owner, and they end up being intimate in an old cinema. When Ek returns to his room, he forgets the porridge, and Buppah goes down to buy it herself. After she comes back, she ties Ek to the bed, and thinking Buppah wants to engage in passionate play, he allows her to proceed. However, when she removes his pants, she brings a hot object close to his genitals, causing him to scream in pain. The next morning, while the landlord is locking up the rooms of those who have moved out, they hear a knocking sound. They wonder where the noise is coming from, and discover Ek, bound and struggling to escape from room 609, calling for help. But ultimately, he is pulled back into the room before Buppah runs out to wait. Shortly after, the landlord receives a call from a relative who had contacted a Cambodian shaman, and she boldly announces that if the ghost is still around, they will face it tomorrow. Meanwhile, Buppah is using a saw to cut off Ek's legs while he is tied to the bed. In the evening, the daughter of the porridge shop knocks on the door. thinking Ek is in the room. Hearing something, she opens the door and walks in, only to find Ek with both legs severed. While on the bed, she tries to help untie him, but at that moment, Buppah's ghost appears and possesses her. Coincidentally, the Cambodian shaman hired by the landlord arrives. The girl, possessed by Buppah's ghost, sits at the table, and suddenly the door opens. It seems that Buppah's spirit is about to be subdued by the shaman's talisman, before they can take her body to the car for cremation at the temple. However, on the way, the talisman holding Buppah's ghost is blown away by the wind, allowing Buppah's spirit to possess the landlord, who is driving, causing her to swerve and crash into oncoming traffic. The scene cuts back to the girl, who has been rescued and is being treated downstairs with Ek. She tries to shake him awake and asks if he is still conscious. They search through his wallet and find his home number. When she calls, Ek's father answers. She tells him to come help Ek, but his father responds, confused, saying, "What is going on? Someone called earlier saying they were Ek, and now you're saying you're with Ek." He then scolds her, saying that Ek has been dead for a month before hanging up. Hearing this, the girl is stunned and speechless, slowly uncovering Ek, only to find him lying there as a ghost. She screamed in madness and became insane. Then the scene cut back to Ek's ghost, who had his legs cut off, bringing a flower to reconcile with Buppah's ghost, so that they could stay together in that apartment. 6 months later, the caretaker, who had just experienced an accident while taking Buppah's ghost for cremation, gave up on Buppah's haunting and turned to worship and fulfill Buppah's requests instead. She brought a wheelchair as Buppah had asked, allowing Buppah's ghost to demonstrate her powers to make anyone stop being afraid and come rent her apartment. It seemed that Buppah's powers were indeed real, as a struggling comedy troupe, Den, Dao and Dee, decided to rob a bank and hide out in the caretaker's apartment, calling everyone to share the stolen money there. However, those who had previously lived in the apartment, haunted by Buppah, felt scared. There was also another tenant, Tip, a blind girl who moved in, appearing as if she had lost all will to live. One day, she went up to the rooftop, contemplating suicide, but at that moment, Ek's ghost intervened, telling her that life was very important. She changed her mind about jumping, and Ek felt that Tip looked familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. That evening, the doctor, who was taking care of Tip regarding her blindness, came to discuss eye surgery, stating that it would cost millions. She replied that she didn't have that kind of money, and since she was completely blind, no one would hire her. The doctor then made a proposal for her to agree to have relations with him in exchange for the surgery costs. But Tip refused, and told the doctor to leave. At that moment, it seemed that Ek's ghost was concerned about Tip, as Ek's wheelchair was keeping an eye on the doctor from a distance. In the evening, Den, Dao and Dee gathered to divide the money they had stolen from the bank, but Dee planned to take all the money for himself. He took his wallet out of the room just as his friends were coming up. So he ran to find a room to hide, and ended up opening room 609, which was Buppah's ghost's room. This startled Dee, causing him to leave his wallet behind as he ran out, telling his friends that he had been haunted by a ghost, but they didn't believe him. Meanwhile, Den, who had been planning to keep the money for himself, told Deo to watch over Dee while he went up to room 609 with Du. When they entered the room, they found the wallet placed on the bed. As Den was about to take it, he was suddenly pulled back by Ek's ghost. Den ran out and told Du to go get it instead. But Du, out of fear, closed his eyes and fired his gun wildly, which made the caretaker call the police upon hearing the gunshots. Just as Den was about to take the wallet, he was also frightened by Ek's ghost and had to run out of the room, rejoining his friends. After that, Buppah's ghost, who had just returned to the room, told her about the stolen wallet, Not long after, the police arrived and the caretaker told them to check the rooms rented on the 5th floor. However, the elevator went up to the 6th floor where they encountered Buppah's ghost, who had entered the elevator with them, causing them to be so frightened that they had to flee back almost immediately. That night, Eck dreamed of Tip and remembered that 6 years ago, he was the one who drove the car that hit her, causing her to go blind. The following afternoon, Eck went to see Tip and brought her the wallet from the robbery, telling her to use the money for her eye surgery. He shared various things with her and asked for her forgiveness, explaining that it was unintentional before leaving. Tip then asked for his name and the room number where he was staying. When Eck's ghost returned to the room, he encountered Buppah's ghost. She asked him where he had been, and he replied that he was just around there. She then said, "If you had legs, you would have gone further, right?" To which he responded that he wasn't going anywhere. Before she left the room, she reminded him, "You know that Buppah doesn't like dishonest people, right?" On the side of the bank robbers, Den, who has a nephew ordaining as a monk, called him to help chase away the ghost so they could retrieve the wallet, unaware that the wallet was now with Tip. When they brought the novice monk in to try to drive away the ghost, they were once again frightened and ran out. JC called the police for another investigation, and this time, 4 officers were dispatched. When they went to search the robbers' room, they were shot at by the robbers and had to flee. They regrouped at the station, after Tip used the stolen money for her eye surgery. The doctor brought her back to her room, advising her to take antibiotics. However, the eye that was supposed to see was switched with a sedative, and he attempted to assault her. At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and when the doctor opened it, no one was there. But when he returned to the room, the knocking resumed. This time, he encountered the wheelchair parked there, and suddenly, Eck's ghost appeared, causing the doctor to run away in fear. Eck then went in to help Tip, while at the same time, Buppah's ghost appeared, realizing that Eck was in the room alone with a woman. She became very angry and asked Eck where he had been and what he had been doing. He told her again that he was just around here, which made Buppah's ghost angry because Eck was lying. She took out a baton and hit his knee, then sewed his mouth shut, saying that she did this so Eck wouldn't lie to anyone else. In the 3rd round, the police called in undercover officers for assistance, but by the time they arrived, the robbers were gone. Instead, they found Tip's room open. When the police searched, they discovered the wallet used in the bank robbery and the remaining items after Tip's eye surgery. The police then had to take her in for questioning at the station. When Tip regained consciousness, she said she got all the money from someone named Eck from room 609. However, the police were skeptical because they knew that someone named Eck had died a long time ago, so they sent her back to the apartment and had officers keep watch, thinking the group of robbers would surely return for the money. On the side of the thieves, they have gone to see the same ghost doctor, who was previously attacked by the flower ghost. This time, the ghost doctor has become more skilled in magic, after just returning from Myanmar. That evening, a group led by Master Kong, the ghost doctor, ascends to the 6th floor, which raises the police's suspicion as to why they haven't gone to the 5th floor to take their share of the money with Tip. When Master Kong enters room 609, he encounters the flower ghost again, leading to a fight. Meanwhile, the group of thieves waiting outside is surrounded by the police and has to run into the room with Master Kong. At that moment, Master Kong is pulled into another dimension by the flower ghost, which is filled with blood, where he sees the bleeding ghost sitting there. The two engage in another battle, during which Master Kong throws a magical sword that pierces the flower ghost's seat, causing her body to dissolve into a spirit. Master Kong then traps her in a magical pot, before escaping from the dimension, only to be taken hostage by the thieves to use as a means of escape, while the main ghost is trapped in the bathroom. After the flower ghost is trapped, it becomes bound and starts haunting the police and the security outside, causing them to flee in fear. Meanwhile, the main ghost comes out to hunt the group of thieves and Master Kong, who has captured the flower ghost. Upon seeing the ghost, the thieves run away, leaving only Master Kong and his disciples behind. Master Kong is nearly attacked by the main ghost, but calls for his disciples just in time to help him. They then take the magical pot that contains the spirit of the flower ghost and burn it. In the end, the group of thieves that escaped from the building finds no way out and gets caught, ending up in a comedic situation in jail. The scene then cuts back to Tip, who has been released by the police. Once her vision returns, she goes back to room 609 and knocks on the door, which is opened, revealing that the main ghost is still lingering around. 10 years later, Sister C has passed away, and Sister 3 has renovated the entire apartment, turning it into an illegal gambling den, attracting new tenants. The scene shifts to a barbershop, where a girl named Pla is introduced. Her mother abandoned her when she was 5, leaving her with a cruel stepfather, who often physically abuses her. She is also seen as an outcast by her peers at school. One day, she is bullied and pushed down the stairs, causing her to lose consciousness. When she wakes up, she recalls her past life as the flower ghost. After the accident at school, she is called in for a talk, and by evening, her stepfather threatens to send her to a reform school and attempts to harm her again. This time, she refuses, telling him that she is not Pla, but the flower ghost. She stabs her stepfather with scissors and escapes from home. The fall down the stairs has caused the memories of both Pla and the flower ghost to overlap within the body of the young girl. Fueled by anger from being bullied, she secretly takes her stepfather's razor to harm her classmates at school. Subsequently, the memories of the flower ghost lead her back to Oscar apartment once again. However, misfortune strikes when she returns to her old room and unexpectedly encounters a nephew of Sister 3, who is in the bathroom pleasuring himself. When this young man sees her, he attempts to rape her. The scene depicts both Pla and the flower ghost, as they are the same person. In her struggle to escape, she bites his hand, causing him to accidentally tear her mouth open, resulting in a gruesome death with blood splattering everywhere. This incident gives rise to 2 ghosts in the apartment. The ghost of Pla, the young girl filled with terrible memories of her stepfather, who harbors deep resentment and hatred towards men, and the flower ghost, who longs for her past love, hoping that her beloved will return one day. The scene then shifts to Cherry and Rang, a couple facing various issues, one of which is Rang's ability to see ghosts, which Cherry finds troubling. While they are trying to resolve their relationship problems, they witness someone jumping off a building. When the person turns to face Cherry, she remarks, "Here we go again," as what Rang sees is merely a spirit that only he can perceive. The reason Rang can see ghosts or spirits is that he nearly drowned as a child. A monk advised him to pretend he couldn't see them, and they would eventually go away. Shortly after, the spirit of the person who jumped off the building appears next to Cherry, telling her it wants to take her away. Seeing Rang talking to the spirit, Cherry can no longer tolerate it, and decides to break up with him, telling him to go elsewhere. The flower ghost explains that Rang was the boy next door in her past life, whom she saved from drowning. Fate has brought them close together again. After being kicked out by his ex-girlfriend, Rang rents an apartment in the same building as the flower ghost. When the old caretaker shows him to his room, he requests to move to another room because he can see the ghost in that one. Ultimately, he ends up in room 605, on the same floor as the flower ghost. At that time, Rang works as a voice actor for ghost cartoons, but his income is not very good. During quiet moments, he often finds himself thinking about his older sister, the flower ghost, who used to tutor him when he was young, as he has had a crush on her for a long time. The reason he nearly drowned was that he had urged the flower ghost to go help him. After he recovered, he began to see ghosts again, and his mother told him that the flower ghost had gone to study in Bangkok, but had left some belongings for him. This is the colored pencil that the flower ghost has kept until now, without using it. That night, Rang's friends called to say they would come over to drink at his place. At that moment, Rang noticed the flower ghost playing in the hallway, and suddenly she appeared in a terrifying form, chasing him with a razor blade. In just a flash, she disappeared before reappearing right in front of him, causing him to rush into his room. However, the ghost still managed to attack him, leaving a mark from the razor on the door. His friends knocked on the door and gathered to drink in his room. Some of them also saw the flower ghost, while one friend who couldn't see her was suddenly mounted by the ghost. The other friends tried to help by having that friend hold a Buddha statue, but it was ineffective. Meanwhile, the flower ghost raised the razor to threaten them. The friends who could see the flower ghost discussed what to do, and suddenly the flower ghost appeared again, haunting them until they had to run away. It must be noted that the friend who was ridden by the ghost now had his ear cut off by the razor. The ghost then began to attack others in the apartment. Meanwhile, Payu, Jan and Pui, the new tenants, were playing with a glass spirit board, trying to summon the spirit of their recently deceased friend. However, when the spirit appeared, she tried to warn them to flee from something, which was the forest ghost in the form of Buppah. But it was too late as she charged at Payu and violently attacked him with the razor. On the other side, Rang's friends wrote a message on the door, telling him to move out because of the forest ghost's menace. The overlapping memories between the forest ghost and Buppah's ghost conflicted, causing Buppah to sometimes feel she didn't want to harm anyone, but was overtaken by the vengeful spirit of the forest ghost, leading her to attack people. Unable to endure the forest ghost any longer, Rang decided to seek help from Master Kong, the ghost doctor, who had now turned to running for governor, to deal with the forest ghost, or Buppah's ghost, once again. In the first ritual, where Master Kong encountered the fish ghost, he felt a sense of familiarity, and eventually remembered that the fish ghost was actually Buppah, reincarnated. However, the power and ferocity of the forest ghost, combined with Buppah's ghost, were beyond what Master Kong could handle, and he was attacked. That evening, Rang, who had just returned from his room, encountered Buppah's ghost, but she did not recognize him. Rang showed her a picture of them as children, which began to change Buppah's perspective on love. During the time she tutored Rang, she received pure love from the boy. But due to their significant age difference and Rang's declining academic performance, Buppah's mother decided to stop hiring her. Those fond memories gradually softened her vengeful feelings, but the anger from the forest ghost at times pulled her back into darkness. The forest ghost continued to kill people in the apartment, prompting the police to investigate the deaths. The spirits of the forest ghost and Buppah remained intertwined, wandering around and using the razor to scratch the walls of various rooms. During that time, Buppah's ghost was reflecting on various events, while Rang tried to greet her and asked for her help in studying for an exam, but she refused. In truth, Rang had always secretly loved Buppah, but never had the courage to confess. After consulting with his friends, they encouraged him to express his feelings directly. Rang then returned to Buppah's room, but when he entered, he encountered the forest ghost, filled with vengeful rage, charging at him, causing him to freeze in place. Meanwhile, the police received reports. There was an illegal gambling operation in the apartment, and the gambling spirits residing there were being haunted by the forest ghost. It seems that the flower ghost is starting to become confused, turning into a bipolar ghost with two personalities in one body. When the flower ghost returns to the room, she finds the other ghost unconscious, and it seems like his heart has stopped beating from shock. She tries to perform first aid, which makes her recall the past when she helped him after he nearly drowned. When he wakes up, he asks if she believes in ghosts, and she replies that she does. He then mentions that he could see ghosts at that time, but it seems he is about to confess his feelings, but lacks the courage. She tells him to rest before she walks out. But as she returned to the room, she found Lang unconscious. She began to wonder what had happened. Suddenly, a phone rang from the bathroom, and when she went to check, she was confronted by the forest spirit, who presented her with her horrific memories to Buppah's ghost. Now, the two spirits are starting to unite in a wicked manner. On the side of J3, who was detained to give a statement regarding the death case at the apartment, along with illegal gambling charges, she refused to say anything, insisting that she wanted to meet with a lawyer first. After a while, her nephew called to inform her about the shaman she had sent him to find. Rahtree replied that they could discuss the shaman later because she needed the best lawyer to fight her case. Her nephew then updated her that they were in the process of finding a lawyer, and they had also contacted the best shaman in Cambodia. Out of anger and frustration at the spirits that had caused her to end up in jail, she ordered her nephew to start dealing with those spirits immediately. On the side of the character who just woke up, he was surprised to find himself back in his bed, with his belongings scattered all over the room. He decided to go down and ask the dormitory guard, but along the way, he encountered a police barrier blocking the door to Buppah's room. He walked in to see what was happening, and the truth was revealed. Lang, who had been wandering around the apartment, was merely a spirit that had not returned to his body. In reality, he had gone into shock after encountering the fish spirit and had been taken to the hospital. However, Lang's spirit remained attached to Buppah, preventing him from returning to his body. Meanwhile, the monk and Lang's mother, who were anxiously waiting for news, were trying to bring his spirit back. The monk had projected his spirit to find Lang's body, but at that moment, Lang's spirit was heading to Buppah's room. The malevolent energy emanating from the forest spirit caused Buppah to see Lang as the person who had committed suicide, leading her to attack him with a razor blade. At that moment, the monk projected his spirit and saw this, so he pleaded for Lang's spirit. When Buppah looked closely, she realized that the person she was attacking was Lang himself. The monk then helped bring Lang's spirit back to his body, but warned Lang's mother that the spirits of Buppah and the forest spirit harbored intense hatred and vengeance. It is best not to let Lang get involved with those spirits or souls again, as next time the monk may not be able to help like he did this time. After Lang wakes up, his mother will tell him the whole story that Buppah has been dead for a long time, and what Lang saw was merely the spirit still lingering. The scene then shifts back to his nephew, who is bringing the best Cambodian shaman to deal with the two evil spirits. However, they end up being attacked by the forest spirit and the vengeful spirit as usual. This takes place in the province where Lang had secretly escaped from the hospital and returned to the apartment, ignoring the warnings from his mother and the monk. He encounters a horrifying scene where the two evil spirits are taking revenge on his nephew and the Cambodian shaman, causing him to collapse in fear. The spirit of Buppah appears before him, and even though Lang tries to revive Buppah's memories, she is overtaken by the forest spirit's rage and attacks Lang. At that moment, a group of friends who had come to help with a powerful hermit intervenes just in time, but they are caught off guard when Buppah's spirit possesses the assistant of the hermit and begins to mercilessly attack him. Suddenly, Buppah's spirit is engulfed in flames because, on the other side, the body of Pan is being cremated, which causes the evil spirits to. The spirits of Buppah and the forest spirit dissipate, but another evil comes from Buppah's stepfather, who suggested cremating her body at a dog cremation site. Before the police could apprehend him, the autopsy of Pan revealed that Lang, the nephew of the building owner, was guilty of murder due to flesh remnants found under Buppah's nails. However, the torn genitalia and traces of semen belonged to her stepfather. Meanwhile, Rahtree faces imprisonment for illegally operating a gambling den in the apartment. In the final scene, the film returns to the apartment, where Lang opens Buppah's room, before packing his own belongings. He takes out the colored pencils that Buppah had given him, accompanied by a voice in his head. With Buppah's question about why he doesn't use the colored pencils, Lang replies that he is afraid they will get old, but Buppah's voice tells him that she gave them to him to use, not to keep. Lang then opens the box of colored pencils and finds a letter from Buppah that she wrote when she moved to Bangkok. The letter expresses that if she and Lang have the chance to meet again, and if Lang still has feelings for her, she wants him to say it out loud, because the word love is beautiful only when heard from the lips of the person we love. With love, from Buppah. Before the tears of a man overflow, the film comes to an end. And that's it for Buppah Rahtree. How did you find it? I think the first and second parts were quite eerie and had a good storyline, but with parts 3.1 and 3.2, the plot became somewhat mixed, and the horror diminished, replaced by more humor. Overall, I would rate it a 7 out of 10. What do you think, friends? Don't forget to comment and check the names below this video. And the top comment for this video is... From the comments of friends in the channel, someone mentioned that some voices sound like they are recording a Dharma tape. Okay, I'll have to give it a try. Healing the heart during illness. For those who are sick, keep in mind that illness is temporary. No one suffers forever. Pain is also temporary. It comes and goes. However, for some, if the body is very weak, the suffering from illness may accompany our lives. If we have cancer, when we die, the cancer cells die too. They cannot survive without us. Therefore, it's better to think positively. Alright, we've reached the final segment of the show. For Kunal, who requested a song today, it seems we won't be able to play it in time. Let's just skip it. Then, whether you hate or insult, I don't care. Our lives don't depend on what others say. Whether rich or poor, we walk on our own legs. Spoiler alert, 1923. Today, I have to take my leave to drink some pennywort water. See you in the next clip. For today, goodbye.